If you look closely at a rushing river or a dense forest, the real world is infinitely complex and wildly unpredictable. But to build a functioning video game, all that chaos has to be mathematically balanced, snapping into place as a rigidly structured system. If developers lean too hard into hyper-realism, the experience quickly turns into a tedious simulation. But strip away too much detail, and the game becomes an abstract spreadsheet, losing its identity. To solve this problem, designers isolate specific laws of nature and translate them into a tight, accessible language of playable mechanics. The result is that whether you are sweating through a high-stakes esports match or relaxing with a tabletop game, you are unwittingly picking up biological concepts and weaponizing them to crush your opponents. Take the competitive Little Cup format of Pokémon.
At the top of the meta sits Shellder, a bivalve that players utilize as a setup sweeper, a tool designed to temporarily boost its own stats and then wipe out an entire enemy team. Before it can attack, Shellder needs a safe moment to set up. It gets that opportunity because its thick outer shell provides immense physical bulk, allowing it to survive an opponent's opening strike. This diagram shows exactly how players exploit that bulk using a move called Shell Smash. The organism intentionally shatters its own defenses, permanently dropping its armor in exchange for a massive spike in both speed and attack power. With those stats boosted, players rely on a biological ability called Skill Link. In nature, multi-hit moves like Icicle Spear are unpredictable, hitting anywhere from 2 to 5 times. Skill Link forces the move to strike exactly 5 times, every single turn, turning a random biological quirk into a consistent weapon. To beat this strategy, opposing players target the creature's technical blind spots. Shellder has low special defense, and its speed boost means nothing if a predator like Grookey uses a priority attack to strike first. Competitive players build defensive layers around these flaws. They use teammates to clear the field of threats or activate Terra types, elemental shifts that can allow Shellder to survive what would otherwise be a fatal counterattack. Winning at this level depends on navigating these numerical trade-offs, knowing exactly when to sacrifice the protection of the shell for the chance to sweep the field. This same philosophy scales up from individual anatomy to macro ecosystems in environmental puzzle games like Valleys Between. Looking at this grid, the game operates on a simplified rule of ecological succession. Placing water creates grass, and grouping trees on that grass combines them into a dense forest. As the world expands, human industrialization introduces a mechanical threat. Factories appear on the grid, spilling oil onto the surrounding tiles and damaging the health of the biome. Survival requires managing the local wildlife. The animals on the board can be directed to nurture the soil or neutralize those factories. But once they act, they fall asleep, forcing the player to manage defensive zoning to keep the ecosystem balanced. None of this perfectly mirrors reality. You cannot grow a world by instantly plucking a fully grown tree out of the dirt. But strict realism would grind the pacing to a halt. By deliberately sacrificing literal accuracy, the designers successfully capture the delicate mechanics of an ecosystem and turn it into a manageable, satisfying puzzle. Tabletop developers take a similar approach. In the board game Wingspan, players compete to attract a diverse array of birds to their own wildlife preserves. Looking at the card text, the game's engine is built directly on ornithological observation. A bird's behavior in the wild dictates its specific strategic utility on the game board. If you play a predatory bird, its card allows you to hunt. You check the wingspan of the top card on the deck, and if the target is small enough to eat, you capture it and score a point. Meanwhile, a nest parasite like the brown-headed cowbird allows you to passively hijack your opponent's progress. Every time they lay an egg on their own board, your cowbird slips an egg into their nest, scoring for you instead. In this system, exploiting a highly specific ecological niche is indistinguishable from mastering the strategic rulebook. Across competitive esports, digital puzzles, and tabletop engines, we see the same design philosophy at work. Developers always compromise literal reality to keep players engaged. They aren't trying to build perfect, rigid simulations of life. Instead, they observe the rules of nature, distill them down to their core mechanics, and hand them over as strategic tools for players to use against one another. Because these mechanics are built primarily to be fun, the experience never feels preachy.
It sidesteps the tedious, textbook style of traditional educational software. What happens instead is accidental learning. By transforming a natural ecosystem into a competitive battlefield, games trick you into mastering biology just so you can secure a victory.